Today is Thursday, June 25th, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Democrats, as we speak, are debating, Congress, the House is, debating the George Floyd Act on the floor of the House. We will go live in just a moment. In Frankfort, Kentucky, the state capitol, local citizens rally in support of justice for Breonna Taylor. We live streamed that whole rally on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We'll show you for some of that. Union organizations are calling for police reform. We'll talk with the president of AFSCME, Lee Saunders, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. 3 North Carolina cops fired over a racist rant mistakenly recorded and released. We'll have that announcement. Plus, a Scottsdale, Arizona councilman opens an anti-mask rally by saying, "I can't breathe." We'll show you the arrogant asshole's remarks. Plus, in Florida, a crazy-ass white woman goes on this wild rant about having to wear a mask, and she brings up 5G and other craziness. Speaking of craziness, in Oregon, masks are mandatory for everyone except people of color. Okay, all of this while coronavirus numbers continue to spike. We'll talk about that with a doctor who is on the front line of developing a test. And Georgia State Senate Candidate Rev Raphael Warnock joins us to talk about his campaign to become a United States Senator. Plus, we'll talk with a former PGA executive about the lack of diversity in the sport. Plus, another crazy-ass white woman, but this time she chose the wrong one to roll up against. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling.
Folks, what you're seeing right now is the floor of the U.S. House where they are debating the George Floyd Act. This is Republican Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
Was allowed. I listened to the Democrats on the other side because they're in the position. The Republicans are here in the minority. They were offered 20 amendments, but they felt they shouldn't go forward. Not to vote on the bill, but not even to debate it. Would it be too much to offer the minority one vote to do a bill together? Then you tried to diminish its author.
Y'all talk to me.
One Senate Democrat who is white went so far as to say on the floor of the Senate that Senator Scott, a black Republican, was taking the token approach. I don't know if you've ever served with Tim. There's no one that has higher character than the man I know. I don't know what it's like to walk in other people's lives, but Tim is a good friend. He's told me the stories. Tim did not start working on this bill a month ago. He's been working on it his entire life, like others as well. Tim did not ask to do the bill on the Senate side with no input from the other side of the aisle. Tim offered amendments and others, but it can't even move the bill forward. Now, you're defaming its supporters, saying, as Speaker Pelosi absurdly claims, that we are trying to get away with murder, the murder of George Floyd. She knows she should have apologized, but she doubled down on her remarks yesterday. That was a very sad state of affairs. Think for one moment, the Speaker of the House is second in line to the President of the United States. That job is too big for words so small, especially in this moment and in this opportunity. So much for meeting the moment and working together to solve a problem. We've reached a new low in this body, and it's not one that I wanted to be a part of. Democrats in the Senate had the opportunity to add 20 amendments to address their concerns about the Justice Act. But they chose to walk away.
All right, folks, not quite sure why Congressman Kevin McCarthy is whining and complaining about what happens in the Senate. He's actually in the House. we're going to monitor that as it continues. I want to bring in my panel right now. Dr. Greg Carr is chair, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University. Also, Reese Colbert, Black Women's Views. Erica Savage Wilson, she's the host of Savage Politics podcast. Greg, I'll start with you. Again, you have these two bills. Senator Tim Scott, he's been, complaining that Democrats would not meet with him, would not even speak, on the issue. They were going back and forth. And in fact, see if I can pull it up here. He released his video a little bit earlier today complaining about the Justice Act in terms of what did not happen. And he putting this video out, there's this video he called Two with Tim. And he says that Democrats were putting politics before anything else. Play this video.
Meaningful police reform forward. Why is that important? It's not important for Republicans or Democrats, frankly. It's important for kids growing up in the same situation that I found myself growing up in several years ago. I wanted to say to people that we're listening, we're seeing you. We hear your concerns. We had a chance to pass really bipartisan legislation. The House priorities and my priorities aligned pretty well. I offered 5 amendments to their first set of requests. Then they said they wanted more, so I offered 20 more amendments and a manager's amendment. Now, what's a manager's amendment? It's a boring term for whatever you want to add in, let's do it. The problem was they weren't looking for the what. They were looking at the who. The challenge?
But here's the deal, though. He stated, Greg, on the outset, that qualified immunity was simply off the table. Democrats get rid of it in their bill. That's one of the big sticking points.
Sure it is. Respect to Senator Scott, who is doing what those who voted for him sent him to do. Tim Scott is a member of the White Nationalist Party. We should stop equating skin color with politics so Kevin McCarthy can, go along with his other rather rabid friends like Collins from Georgia and Jim Jordan from Ohio over to the hillbilly horde. Tim Scott is being a good soldier. Mitch McConnell can count. No matter how many of those amendments might have been offered, with his kind of aw shucks, affable social media ploy, he knew that they would be voted down in the United States Senate. So it's really irrelevant. Now, I've been watching on and off the debates today, beginning with Jerry Nadler and then Jim Jordan back and forth. And, it's very interesting because the amendments that the GOP continues to get up and say they offered that were rejected include the death penalty for those adding a death penalty rider to the anti-lynching bill. In other words, these are poison pills, no qualified immunity, among other things. These are poison pills. And so it was very interesting finally to see the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Sister Bass, get up and say, she's hopeful because this is going to pass the House. Whatever happens in the Senate, there will ultimately be a resolution and a reckoning. And then she was followed by Barbara Lee, who said something very similar, although Barbara Lee wiped off the microphone and you could hear the live mic. So Karen Bass was like, she's serious about that, isn't she? Damn right she is, because we're in a pandemic. But Tim Scott will have to speak to posterity. And right now he's coming up really small as the blackface on the party of white nationalism.
The thing here, Reese, when you look at really what's going on here, first of all, you always are going to have different versions in the House and the Senate. So there's a thing called committee. So typically what happens is after a bill passes in the House and then another bill passes in the Senate, then they have a conference committee, then they get together and work those different things out. The reality is people have been arguing, the people in the streets, they were arguing, look, in order for this thing to work, there are things you're going to have to get rid of. And that is 3 things: qualified immunity, chokeholds, no-knock warrants. Democrats are saying if those three things are not in the bill, we're not supporting it. Tim Scott, right. I hear all those he's saying. He addresses 2 of those. No-knock warrants, chokehold, does not address qualified immunity.
But the way he addresses it is still very much like, well, it leaves so many gaping holes in it that it doesn't even have any teeth to it. And so I think that what the Democrats are doing for a change is actually standing their ground, which is appropriate, and not allowing the Republicans to just say, we fixed it, time to go home, and nothing is actually fixed. Then The Democrats are the ones who get blamed, by the way, when they vote for something and it doesn't have the intended impact. The Republicans don't get blamed. Their supporters go and cheer them on and say, yeah, look at you, you compromised and this, that, and the other. And so I think that what they're doing right now, if Tim Scott and if the Republicans are serious about policing reform, which we know that they're not, then they need to get on board with the Justice and Policing Act. That's the bill that's going to pass in the House. And so that's the bill that needs to pass in the Senate. And the Democrats have to stick with it. If you don't have a solution this time, then you don't have a solution. But the stuff that's being put forth by Tim Scott is not anything more than a PR campaign, not a solution.
So, look, here's the thing that cracks me up. Erica. And look, politics is all a part of this. If you're on the Democratic side, you see momentum. You see polling with Joe Biden. You see the fact that 4 seats, all Democrats need are 4 seats to take over the United States Senate. The calculus is, why would I take qualified immunity off the table now when I wait 4 months? I can actually get a much bigger bill if we control the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Absolutely, Roland. And then this is where paying attention to the courts comes in, because all the while that this is happening, the Senate actually confirmed the 200th Trump judge. Corey Wilson was confirmed this week. And so the wind is on the back of the Democrats. And so when we look at that number you're talking about, 4, they actually only need 3. As long as Democrats take the White House, then whoever that vice president is actually functions as the president of the Senate. And so this is where people need to be actually paying attention to what's happening. We have 35 senators whose seats are up this year. We also have, looking at this time as well, a period with which folks are not standing down. We've had people that have been in the streets a month this week, and people are actually paying attention and connecting the dots that all politics is local, and that there are things that can be done on the local level that will eventually affect what we see happening at the federal level. And so as we continue to kind of like see these antics that are coming out from Tim Scott, if folks just continue to keep the focus on what is happening, continue to vote, continue to make sure that their voices are heard, we will see a turnaround come November. Leave the polling alone. We do understand that polling is saying that right now Biden is up by double digits, but forget the polling.
Right.
Continue to vote. Continue to stay committed to your state and presidential primaries, and make sure have a voting plan to come out in November and kick Trump out.
And of course, folks, there's a lot of folks who have been really focused on this whole issue of police reform. More than 1,000 people made their way to Kentucky's Capitol building in a show of solidarity for the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement. Now, the crowd began gathering in Frankfort, Kentucky this morning. Organizers demanded action on her case, saying it has been 100 days and still no justice. Just one of the police officers has been fired as a result. Now, we live stream the entire rally on our Roland Martin Unfiltered platforms. If you want to see the full rally, just simply go to our YouTube channel. You can take a look at that. But here is an excerpt of what happened today.
Oh, Lord, it seems like the law is pointing us in the slack, and there is no justice. But, Father, we pray right now that you would let justice roll on like a river and righteousness like never failing streams, so there can be peace on earth. Lord, please quench the fiery darts of justice delayed and justice denied, hatred, oppression, social unrest, and police brutality. Lord, as we come today praying for justice for Breonna Taylor, we find strength in your words that are found in 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal our land. Oh God, we pray for peace, love, and unity throughout the state, nation, and the world. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to be here today and peacefully take a stand for justice. We thank you, Lord, for Unite Until Freedom and Black Lives Matter, who spearheaded this event, and all those who participated, Almighty God. Lord, please keep them safe and give them traveling grace. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. And all those who love the Lord, say amen.
Because it's just a little, the energy is too low for me. It's Thursday in the middle of the day, and we're here to fight for Breonna Taylor. I need you to make some noise for me all the way in the back. Let them know you're here.
Yes.
We didn't come here to be nice. We didn't come to be quiet. Turn up and make some noise, y'all. Turn your voices up. Say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Say her name. What y'all came here for, to get justice, that's right? So we can't do that quietly. What do we want? No justice? No justice? No justice? No justice? No justice? All right, that sounds more like it. One more time. Let me hear you all the way in the back. That's not it. That's not it. Maybe my energy was too low. Let me hear you all the way in the back. Let them know you're here in the front, on the sides, in the middle. We want justice for Breonna Taylor. Okay, y'all made the trip worthwhile.
Amen. Y'all give it up for Tamika Mallory, the queen of the movement. Until freedom, Tamika Mallory. Before we bring this family up, I want you all to do me a favor so Attorney General Cameron can hear us from his office. I want you to put your fist in the sky. Get them up, raise them high. Repeat with me. Get your fist in the sky, put them up, raise them high. Put your fist in the sky, put them up, raise them high. Put your fist in the sky, put them up, raise them high. Put your fist in the sky, get them up, raise them high. Put your fist in the sky, get them up, raise them high. Put your fist in the sky, get them up, raise them high. Put your fist in the sky, get them up, raise them high. Brothers and sisters, on behalf of Tamika Mallory and Until Freedom, we can't say thank you enough for answering the call for justice for an innocent black woman who was killed in the sanctity of her own home. And if you can't be safe in your own home, where can you be safe?
Folks, now we have drama out of North Carolina where 3 members of a police department have been fired after a department audit of a video recording captured one of the officers saying a civil war was necessary to wipe black people off the map and that he was ready. The Wilmington Police Department took the action on Tuesday against Corporal Jesse Moore and officers Kevin Piner and Brian Gilmore. Each was accused of violating standards of conduct, criticism, and use of inappropriate jokes and slurs. Police Chief Donnie Williams released the details of the investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, media, and more importantly, distinguished members of the community. Today is a challenging day for me because as your new police chief, one of my first major tasks is to announce the termination of 3 veteran Wilmington police officers. The reason they're terminated is for misconduct. While terminating an employee is never easy, there are times when it's necessary. And today, with the concurrence of our City Council and at the direction of City Manager Sterling Cheatham, we will be releasing a summary of the internal investigation of these 3 officers, including their termination letters, written comments from me, which include directives for correction, and other information that is public under state personnel laws. Why are we releasing this information in this way? It's because of the times that we're in. And it's the right thing to do. Normally, personnel laws allow only a small amount of information to be made public. However, in exceptional cases, when it's essential to maintain public confidence in the administration of the city and our police department, more information may be released. This is the most exceptional and difficult case I have encountered in my career. We must establish new reforms for policing here at home and throughout this country. Yesterday, we officially terminated Officer James Gilmore, Corporal Jesse Moore II, and Officer Kevin Piner as a result of an internal investigation that uncovered extensive violations of the department's manual of rules, policies, which included our standard of conduct, criticism, and use of inappropriate language. This investigation started as a result of a supervisor's routine inspection of a video from Officer Piner's in-car camera. No one told us about this. We discovered it on our own because we have processes and policies in place. After a review of the video, the supervisor discovered 2 conversations that Officer Piner had. One with Officer Gilmore and the other with Corporal Jesse Moore II. The conversations...
Well, Reese, when people sit here and say, oh, no, a few bad apples, I mean, these are people with badges and guns who literally could shoot and kill black folks and get away with it.
And they have been doing just that. I mean, he refers to a civil war is about to start. The civil war has been on black folks for centuries now. It never ended against us. We went from slave patrols to the police officers. And yes, one could say not all, but when you have this kind of white supremacist mentality ingrained and infiltrated in these police departments, people try to act like we're imagining this stuff. We're not imagining it. This is how people act. And I'm glad to see that these cases are going to be reviewed, because with that kind of mentality and with that kind of bias, who knows what kinds of evidence has been planted, what kinds of testimony has been biased and inaccurate to try to, imprison black people. And people with this mentality are actually out there killing black people right now, and they have a badge, and so they do it with impunity.
And Erica, people go, oh no, but audio, baby, captured in their own voices. You can't say they were just joking.
Right, and we're very thankful that there was an actual audit that was done, and that the person that actually conducted the audit saw fit to actually turn over this audio to the proper personnel for a review, and then now we're seeing the firing happen. And, along with what Reese said, thinking about Tamir Rice today, there has been so many social media posts around Tamir Rice should be turning 18 today. And I talked about how Tamir Rice, when I think about the class of 2020, he should have been graduating with his class today, but for the fact that this is in large part really the ways in which law enforcement sees black people. When you look at data and reports that were released back in 2019, the National Science Group said in large part in 2019 that the leading cause of death for young black men was by police violence. So it is not something that is being imagined. It is not something in a case where if only black people would just comport themselves different. Well, damn, how do you comport yourself different if you're in your damn bed sleep and a law enforcement officer comes with a signed warrant in his hand with all of the backing of law to just release bullets while you're in the bed sleep with your boyfriend? How the hell do you comport yourself away from that type of violence? So what we're saying about law enforcement is there has to be a complete shifting. Enough with that only a few bad apples. There is a sickness and an illness, and it has to be taken out.
Greg Carr.
That's exactly right. I mean, I can't do anything but agree. I mean, think about the irony. Wilmington, North Carolina, site of the only to date coup d'etat in American history, where these white boys came in and overthrew the elected government of Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898 and tried to kill the black people and run them all out of town. And here we are in 2020 with that brother Donnie Williams, who's only been the police chief since earlier this week. He's been an interim up until this week, and the city council made him permanent. Here's a guy been on the police force for 29 years, grew up in public housing, rose from a cadet in the Wilmington Police Force all the way to become the chief. What that speaks to, as well as what you just showed, went down in Frankfurt today. By the way, I saw my young bull back there, rising sophomore at Howard University, Sean Ali Waddell, who helped organize that rally. That's Muhammad Ali's great nephew. What we see is when we involve ourselves in the political process, we can get people in place who can pull the trigger on something, even in a Wilmington, North Carolina. I know you're going to have Reverend Warnock on in a minute to talk about Georgia. And I think about the fact that even in Kentucky, Charles Booker, at least in the early account and early counting has pulled ahead of Amy McGrath in that election for to run on the Democratic side in the Senate. What we saw in Wilmington today is a direct result of people being involved in the political process so that when something like this happens, the structural violence that people have tried to get us to be used to in this country will not stand. It's important to be involved in the political process.
Well, again, now we have the insight into exactly what they were thinking. And trust me, we've seen other examples of cops with the same thought process on police forces across this country. Folks, earlier today, I got a chance to talk with Lee Saunders, who is the president of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, which has a number of police officers under their particular banner. We talked about police reform and what needs to happen. Here is our conversation. Here, the Senate, Democrats blocked the Senate police reform bill. Democrats voting today on the House bill, clearly at an impasse. You represent with your union, there are police officers, under your domain as well. How do we get to the point of achieving bipartisan police reform?
Well, first of all, I think we've got to honestly and seriously recognize the problem. And the problem is that we've had systemic racism in this country for many, many, many years, and it is not improving. And it's not just in the police, with the police. It's also with employment, with health, as far as the impact that that has on African-American families. And we've just got to deal with this crisis. And it is a crisis. And people are fed up. They're angry. They're frustrated. I can understand that. I'm angry and frustrated. And we've got to have a dialogue that makes sense with everybody, bringing everybody to the table and recognizing the issues and coming up with some very valid solutions. I got to tell you, Roland, I am tired of having these task forces and the committees and the conferences that take place, and then nothing happens. I mean, this is a moment in time where something has got to happen, and we have got to address the issue of systemic racism.
So, but with that, I mean, right now, I mean, with the murder of George Floyd, it is such a flashpoint when it comes to police. And look, there've been lots of discussion about police unions, folks saying those contracts, qualified immunity, all these different things, chokeholds, you name it. People are saying defund the police. And so, again, at some point, there has to be a compromise. There has to be solutions. And so what is AFSCME putting forth, or what do you want to see done so that we actually achieve that?
Well, we believe that we came out with a resolution in 2018 based upon discussions that we had with our community activists within our union who are members of AFSCME, along with our law enforcement, police officers, corrections officers, probation officers. And we had some very deep discussions about what we needed to do. The first thing is, and I don't use the term defund police, but I honestly believe that resources should be reallocated within the department and outside of the department. Since the Great Recession, we have not seen the levels of public service employees rising to where it was before that Great Recession. If, in fact, you reallocate funds from the police department and say, for example, provide more money to social workers, child protective workers, those kinds of folks who can do the jobs that police are doing right now, it frees them up. And it gives a more human touch to dealing with people that have issues and problems in our communities. I think chokeholds need to be banned. I think that sometimes you've got to take decisions that the prosecutor makes and take it out of his or her hands, and maybe the attorney general has got to get directly more involved. So there are a variety of issues that we've got to talk about. President Obama's task force had many recommendations that were never implemented. And I think that's a start. The House bill has a number of those recommendations built in to their bill, and there's going to have to be some kind of compromise, obviously. But I'm going back to the point where we've got to do something about systemic racism in this country. And it involves healthcare, it involves housing, it involves police, it involves law enforcement, it involves jobs and economic fairness for African Americans and people of color.
One of the things that we keep hearing from folks is that on this whole issue, people say, you know, you got a few bad apples. But part of the deal also here, this is where I argue you also have to have police accountability. When you look at what happened in the case of George Floyd, if an officer had went over and said, man, get off of his neck, okay, then all of a sudden that changes the whole deal. When you had there was a case out of Los Angeles where this guy was just wailing against the dude, and the other officer, she's just standing there, and then when the body cam footage, I mean, you comes out and you hear what he was saying, and it's like example after example. But part of the problem is where you've had cops who've done in the past, they've been ostracized, and so at some point you got to have police on police accountability, and not have this deal to, oh, how dare you fire people or suspend them, and now we're going to do a slowdown, or we're going to get upset and we're going to, you know, resign en masse like in Buffalo or the SWAT team in Florida. I mean, I think the public also needs to see that from police.
I agree, and you know, what's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. And if police see something that's happening that is not right, that is risking someone's life, that is way over the top as far as how they're dealing with folks, they've got to speak up. They've got to talk about it. Let me go back to one point, Roland, and I want to be clear on this. And I honestly believe that police should have the ability to be represented by a union if they so choose. Everybody is entitled to due process, but the contract that's negotiated cannot be used as a shield for bad behavior. And we've got to deal with that. And management has got to deal with that. Elected officials have got to deal with that. And at times they're going to have to take that issue on, whether it may be uncomfortable or not. They're going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to take it on. I think unions have a responsibility also as far as bringing people together around that same table and talking about it and educating folks, educating our members about systemic racism in this country, what it's meant to African Americans through so many years. And we want to do that. The way that we do that is to have folks at the table talking about it. But then once we decide on a plan of action, we move forward very, very quickly.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I remember there was a particular story I was reading in SAG-AFTRA. You talk about, you know, a fellow union out of Hollywood. They called on police unions to change, or they said, quote, lose all support. I mean, so here's a union who is saying, look, you're a union, we're a union, but you're going to have to make some changes in order to get the trust of the public. That's where I go back to accountability, because you have some people who are saying, get rid of the police unions. Then you have people who are union supporters who say, no, we can't do that because we also believe in unions. So then it's like, okay, how do you fix the problem? And that's really, I think, where when I look at what SAG-AFTRA said, what they're saying, you have to deal with the problem and not act like a problem doesn't exist.
No question. And we all know that there is a problem. We know that. We cannot run away from that fact. People can deny it. They can try to run away from it, but we've got a serious, serious problem in this country that's got to be dealt with. And we've got to bring people together to sit down and talk about it, but most importantly, put those plans and put what was decided upon in those meetings into action that makes sense, so we don't have to continue to deal with these killings that are taking place all across the country, and brutality that's happening, the economic injustice, the healthcare inadequacies within the African American community, housing issues, public education issues. This is the moment, this is the time to put all of this on the table and seriously deal with it, come up with solutions, and move this country forward.
Right now, the real block is that you have this call for ban on police chokeholds, ban on no-knock warrants, and ending qualified immunity. Are those three things, that right now is the block on Capitol Hill. Whereas you have Democrats who say those three things must be a part of police reform. Then you have Senator Tim Scott's bill. It does not include qualified immunity, but he says does indeed lead to the ban of chokeholds and no-knock warrants. Do you see that being resolved? Because Democrats are saying, we don't care. If those three things are not in the bill, there will be no bill going forward.
I think that the knock warrants and the ban of chokeholds really have got to be dealt with in some kind of way. QI, which I call QI, qualified immunity, really has to be looked at and studied. It's very, very complicated. All public employees, all public sector workers have qualified immunity based upon the jobs that they do. And you're putting many in jeopardy if you're talking about getting rid of qualified immunity. I understand the sensitivities associated with that, but we want to sit down and talk about alternatives and talk about ways in which we can deal with that we get to the same place that people want to get to. But overall, we know and we believe that there needs to be fundamental and serious changes that take place in order to resolve the kinds of problems that we've been dealing with for so many years.
All right, Lee Saunders, President of AFSCME. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me, Roland.
This is where, Greg, black union leaders are going to be so important because folks like Lee Saunders, and let me also say AFSCME, full disclosure, they're a partner, supporter of this show. They can serve a vital role when it comes to dealing with this whole issue because when you talk, and also not just black union leaders, but also black folk groups like Noble. This is where our black organizations have a seat at the table where you traditionally are talking to white police leaders and saying, no, we know these issues. There's a problem here. Y'all got to be a part of the solution.
Absolutely. And appreciate Brother Saunders for his nuanced reading of what has been a long-term difficulty for people of African descent in this country. We know that the ownership class, the so-called elites, the ruling class, so to speak, have always worked against labor. And it was the birth of organized labor in the 19th century that saw the real pushback. Of course, had people of African descent, had poor whites been able to marry with blacks during the early days of organized labor, we wouldn't be in some of the messes we are in today. But it was racism that always lay at the heart of organized labor. And we know that, of course, you've talked many times about A. Philip Randolph and the Brotherhood Student Car Porters and Chambermaids, so forth and so on, AFL-CIO. But here we are in 2020. So when you see Lee Saunders, you're looking, or Bill Lucy, you're looking at figures who are black, who are going to advocate for black folk, and who are doing it through the power of organized labor. There are many unions in AFSCME, AFL-CIO, organized labor, who detest the racist behavior of many of these police unions. So what we have an opportunity finally to do here is not only lead from a moral principle, not only organize around the idea of black strength, but to finally join forces with those other folks who are like, you are not only giving unions a bad name, you are maintaining this white nationalist attitude that ultimately works against organized labor. So, kudos to Lee Saunders, because that's a difficult needle to thread, brother.
Reese.
Yeah, and I think that, one of the ways that the police unions have been shielded is by attaching themselves to the labor movement and, being able to kind of successfully convince people that an attack on police unions is an attack on all unions. So it's really important for people like Lee Saunders and other labor union leaders to come out and actually be on the side of policing reform and divorce to a certain extent a little bit that kind of connection that people tried to make. And I think to Lee Saunders' point when he talked about how qualified immunity all public employees have it to a certain extent, certainly nothing that the Democrats are suggesting will lead to eliminating qualified immunity for all public employees. It's just not, it's saying you don't have qualified immunity to go out there and kill black people. So I didn't entirely agree with his point on that one, but I understand his concern.
Erica.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that it is important for someone like Lee Saunders to be able to have this very nuanced conversation, understanding that QI, as he put it, does cover government officials. But then I also think it's very important to parse through that police unions also have the backing of the benevolent officers, that particular group. They also have the Fraternal Order of Police Union as well. So they do have a lot of support that really kind of makes them a lot more louder in the way that they're able to exercise their ability to do the things that really do harm public. But I definitely agree with Dr. Carr and Reese that it is of the utmost importance to have somebody who understands and has the depth to be able to have this nuanced conversation and to really lead us into a place where the reforms that we're looking for will be the ones that we'll actually see.
All right, folks, let's now talk about coronavirus's impact on the country. We are seeing it come back with a vengeance. We're seeing California, Texas, significant numbers there. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, this idiot, okay, who was so gung-ho, Greg, your mother's living there, all my family's there. He was so gung-ho about reopening the state. Now, all of a sudden, guess what? He's saying, hey, can y'all stay home? Well, you didn't listen to the mayors of the cities and the county judges who were telling you don't reopen the state so fast. Folks, we have 2,336,615 cases of coronavirus. 121,000 people have died. 784 of those deaths are new. Now you have the federal government, Erica, pulling the federal testing sites out of places like Texas and Arizona where the numbers are going up. Why would you pull testing out when the numbers are increasing?
Yeah, we actually saw reporting on this, Roland, like back in April or early May. When we're looking at, and it's really interesting that this is happening, right? But we knew that this was going to happen because the coronavirus is a novel, meaning it is a new virus. So when those folks who were out front saying, well, it's only impacting this demographic, so those demographics need to make sure that they stay at home, everyone else can kind of, play it by ear, so to speak. And now we're seeing that the numbers are up amongst the 18 to 29 group because this is a new and novel virus. Again, I think that it's really important to reinforce that a lot of the decisions that were made around the state executive governors to reopen as early as they did, to allow those stay-at-home orders to expire as early as April and May, were made because of economic reasons, specifically when the data began to creep out to show that this virus was impacting Black and brown people, meaning the folks that engine the economy. Also, is disproportionately impacting them. We can continue to sacrifice them in the name of business. So now what we're seeing happening in your home state of Texas is that the Texas Children's Hospital has had to start making their facility available for grown people because the numbers are just that staggering. And I was watching Business News today. I'm watching different doctors who are painted with fear because they're really scared that there's going to be an explosion that cannot be contained, bearing in mind that the CDC director has told us today that the numbers may be 10 times higher than what we're seeing, the 2 million that are being reported. So our nation is really in a critical place. And if folks do not wear masks, if people do not social distance, what they're seeing happening in Texas will be happening in their state very soon.
Greg, real simple. I mean, bottom line is these governors, these Republican governors, were trying to follow Trump's lead. And people like Dr. Ebony Hilton, I got a doctor coming up next, kept trying to say, y'all, take this thing slow, stop trying to ramp up. Now they're seeing what happens when you don't listen to the health professionals.
That's right, brother. And as we just heard, brilliantly put, Erica laid us down through it. We are the ones who are going to suffer disproportionately. This idiot, as you say, Abbott, your family, my family, and not just our two families, but millions of people in the state of Texas now subject to this clown. Sylvester Turner in Houston, one of the counties that has been, they're saying they're going to suspend elective surgery. Mayor Turner comes out and says, hey, man, my intensive care wards are already at 97% capacity. My sister and brother-in-law are in health care. And they'll tell you just as fast as, anybody else will tell you, look, when this thing gets overwhelmed, it's going to be in those major cities where our people are. Chokwe Antar was on television earlier today. Chokwe Antar Lumumba, the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. Those idiots in Mississippi, the attorney general there, still hasn't reached an agreement to share reporting data with the biggest city by a factor of 3 in the state of Mississippi and the place where the hospitals are. So who is going to be overwhelmed? Our Black and brown women, and men who are first responders working in those hospitals. Those people are going to come in. They will be overwhelmed, finally. Idiots like Brian Kemp in Georgia, idiots like that fool in Florida are pressing this thing to the point, when you look at the map, the red states where there's up, there are 29 states where this thing is going up. You see most of them, the old Confederacy and those Republican governor states. You're seeing the continuing fraction of the country as Cuomo and Phil Murphy in Jersey and the guy in Connecticut are like, y'all can't come here from these states. And if you come here, you got to sequester for 2 weeks. This is not only testing the United States as a concept, it is going to lead to the fracture of the United States as a concept. Mark my words on that.
All right, joining us right now, Dr. Carissa Colbert, Chief Medical Director of Infectious Disease Diagnostics at Tricor Reference Laboratories. Doc, glad to have you here. This is what I find to be just unbelievable. I'm watching this whole deal right now, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Are they not listening to people who are putting their lives on the front line? I'm sitting here and I'm going, what are you doing? Doctors and ER folks, they're screaming in Texas and Arizona. They're fighting these nuts walking around with their guns. Oh, no, I don't want to put a mask on. As if 121,000 dead just didn't happen.
Right. No, I can't understand. I think at this point, everybody knows somebody. I think early on, people had a lot of questions. Is this real? Is this a hoax? But everybody knows somebody, or people themselves have experienced the virus. This is not a hoax. This is absolutely real. And so the way that we deal with viruses like this in hospitals that can be transmitted from person to person is by wearing masks. And I can point you to the data that shows that this works. It's not just with this virus. I think everybody, whether or not you think coronavirus is a fluke or not, everybody knows that the flu is real. And if you look at the numbers of flu cases, they all fell dramatically once we started social distancing. So we know now coronavirus is real. We know social distancing stops viruses. Coronavirus, flu, other colds. We've seen cases of influenza-like illness, so common colds and other respiratory illnesses. They just fell immediately once we started social distancing. And now that we're wearing masks, people have to see that this is really real. And there's a way that we can protect ourselves and we can protect others.
So the spike is real. We're seeing it. Who are the folks our people are being impacted the most? What states are you looking at where this is being a problem?
Well, I think we've all seen right now, Texas is definitely a problem. We've seen spikes go up in Texas, but it's not just Texas. Texas, Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, several other states in the South, even Oklahoma, have now displayed the highest cases in a single day has occurred either yesterday or today. So really, we're seeing cases go up, number of positive cases go up all over the country. And the big challenge that I see with this is that the federal government just yesterday announced that they were halting the testing component of the CARES Act, which was supporting testing, federally funded testing in multiple states, one of which was Texas. And so now that means that states and hospitals will no longer receive that federal funding to support testing, and they will have to find testing resources, which has been a challenge since the beginning of this crisis. But at least some places had some federal support. That funding is ending, and they'll be on their own to find the testing supplies and resources.
I got to ask you this here. What do you make of this story? An Oregon County has decided to make people of color exempt from its mandatory mask policies, citing the potential for racial profiling. Okay, I'm trying to understand that now. Lincoln County's general directive requires everyone to wear a face covering in any indoor public setting or any outdoor setting where 6 feet of social distancing can't be maintained. But the county wrote on its website, quote, people of color who have heightened concerns about racial profiling and harassment due to wearing face coverings in public are exempt from the rules. Okay, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
The problem, this is a symptom. Right? So we're saying because systematic racism exists, and implicit bias has not been dealt with, that instead of dealing with people's own implicit biases, instead of dealing with systematic racism, we say, let's put the Black people and people of color at risk because we can't check ourselves and not racially profile you. That's basically what it sounds like people are saying. And that's a problem. It has to be a problem. We have to protect ourselves. I think every individual, it's your right to protect yourself. And remember, your mask, so my mask protects you from me. And so I tell my 8-year-old daughter and my 6-year-old son that wearing a mask is how we tell our friends that we care about them. So me not wearing a mask, really, it's not that I'm not protected. I'm not protecting you from me. We've got to get this in our heads that, one, we have to deal with implicit bias and we have to deal with systemic racism. And that's been plaguing our country for 400 years. And it's showing up even more with the disproportional effect of this virus in minority communities, not just Black communities, Hispanic and Latinx communities, Native American communities. But for us all to get through this, we've got to put on masks and we have to be able to get tested.
All right, then. Well, I wish these political people, who are so focused on, look, they're focused on trying to please Donald Trump, who desperately wants to get reelected. And you know what's so crazy? If he actually showed leadership and we actually went to massive testing,
right,
that would actually be seen as a good thing. But you know what? Okay, he won't be stuck on stupid. Go right ahead. I just keep telling Black people, don't listen to them. Keep your behind at home, wash your hands, put your mask on, stop having these damn group gatherings. All y'all Black people in Atlanta, take your asses home. All standing in line for Nikes, been at the mall, the nonsense that we're seeing across the country is crazy. I'm sorry, your life ain't worth a pair of Air Jordans. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
Dr. Colbert, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Quick break. We'll be back. Roland Martin Unfiltered. We got some other stuff for you. Trust me, y'all. Crazy white woman. Why does white woman want to call her sister the N-word? She got her ass whooped. Greg, we've been trying to tell him that. Y'all gonna run up against the wrong one. Wait till y'all see the video. Plus, we're gonna talk with Pastor Raphael Warnock, who is running for the United States Senate out of Georgia, and a brother who worked for the PGA. Wait till he details the kind of racism that he had to deal with in the game of golf. All of that is next. Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, fam, the folks at Ceek.com, founded by Mary Spio, a sister, of course. She is the inventor, the creator of these devices, this virtual reality headset right here. You saw it in the video there. And also the 360-degree 4D headphones. You can actually get these with a discount because they partner with us at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Right here, here's the code, RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020. First of all, folks, the headsets are phenomenal. The headphones are absolutely phenomenal. And, of course, the VR headset is great because you just pop your phone, put it into the device, and you can actually see video in virtual reality. So it's real cool. Go to Ceek.com, 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 and use the promo code RMVIP2020. All right. Y'all know what time it is.
No charcoal grills are allowed.
I'm white. I got you, huh?
Illegally selling water without a permit
on my property.
Whoa! Hey!
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
So we ran up against another Karen Greg in a convenience store. And let's just say, Reese, she got a little bold. She got a little loose with the language. And Erica, let's just say she met Layla Ali.
I'm not necessary. My husband is right there with his black ass. Okay, I don't give a fuck.
All I said was excuse me.
The fuck? Watch your mouth. Watch your fucking mouth.
I said excuse me.
Okay, I said excuse me, and you gotta have a room with me. You gotta have a room with me. All I give a fuck past you. All I give a fuck past you. You start talking about your black husband. I don't give a fuck about your black husband. Just because you suck black dick don't mean you're not a racist. You can suck all of it. You can call me a nigga all you want to. I'm gonna beat your motherfucking ass in this store, bitch. Call me a nigga again. Call me a nigga again. Call me a nigga again. Say the word nigga, bitch. I'm the right one. Try it. That's what the fuck I thought.
I said
Watch your fucking mouth.
excuse me.
The wrong nigga. I'm the wrong nigga. I'll beat your ass in this motherfucking store. I'm gonna beat your ass. Say nigga again.
Nigger.
You didn't hear what the fuck I just said, bitch? You didn't hear what the fuck I just said, bitch? Bitch, that's who I'm the right.
You got it?
Let me go. Let me go. You better let me go. I'm gonna hit your ass again. You better let me go. You better let me go, bitch.
Hey, she's down.
Let me
She's
go.
down. I'm sorry to get in the middle, but she's down.
Let me go. 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 Keep calling me a nigger and let me go. The fuck? Weird ass bitch.
I said excuse me.
I come to this bitch all the time. Bitch, I'm the right one.
Call 911.
Call 911 and tell them.
Call 911 and tell them, Reese.
Boy, you notice she had the nerve to sit up there and say, all I said was excuse me. No, bitch, you called her the N-word and she mollywopped you as she should. And to the bystander talking about, I hate to get in the middle of it, but she's down. So what? Knock her down some more. Because people need to learn. I'm tired of all these docile videos going viral where people let these white folks talk to them any old kind of way and everybody applauds them for how gracious they are and, oh, you were so poised and, oh, you just kept your composure. No, sometimes you need to knock some sense into some of these folks. And she got the sense knocked into her that day.
Greg, we keep warning them. Y'all gonna run up against the wrong one, and it ain't gonna end well.
Brother, in July 1919, Claude McKay published his poem, If We Must Die, Let Us Nobly Die. And when she says, call 911 and tell them, she's saying, you crossed the threshold where I don't even care about any consequences. Call whoever you want. And like you said, like we've been saying now for years at this point, you've been running crazy ass white people. She said the thing we always say, one day you're going to roll up on the right one. She said, I am the right one.
Right.
I mean, but there's so much going on in that video, brother. I mean, the ironies. Here, this white woman is with a mask on. Here, this sister is without a mask on. And you're looking at this, and so when she hits her, the whole thing is triggered by that white woman standing there, and you can see the wheels turning in her mind. Am I going to make a stand for my white nationalism and call this woman the N-word one more time? And when she finally decides to do it, she gets squared up and gets that two-piece, bang, bang. And like when the man says, she's down, that sister right there has not only put herself in danger, but I'll end with this. Like Claude McKay, when he wrote If We Must Die, it was during the Red Summer, brother. The big conflagration that happened in Chicago that summer, the race war that took place in Chicago, it is attested that they were throwing rocks at a black kid trying to swim in the river in Lake Michigan, and they start throwing rocks at him, and next thing you know, everything sets off. It might be a fist fight like that that sends this country up in flames, brother. That's how close we are.
Absolutely.
So y'all better back up.
Folks, in just a moment, I got to show y'all how the white folks at Fox News responded when black people start carrying guns in Atlanta. But right now, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is talking on the floor of the U.S. House as they debate the George Floyd Act. Let's go live right now.
It fails the moment. It does not require anything. It does not ban, require, or create. The Senate bill is threadbare and lacking in substance. It does not even provide a proper baseline for negotiation. It does not contain any mechanisms to hold law enforcement officers accountable in court for their misconduct. Does not address mens rea. a standard that should be the basis of due process. For too long, it has allowed law enforcement officers to evade criminal liability for excessive force. It is absolutely imperative that any meaningful policing reform contains accountability. It fails the moment. Tim Scott introduced the Walter Scott bill many years ago. It was yet to see the light of day in the United States Senate. Where is the party of Lincoln? The Justice Act does little to do with the urgent need, the cry of our people, or those gathering around me in CUNY homes who came to me, friends of George Floyd, who knew Big Floyd, and said, what does this bill do? Will it do anything? And as I told them about the bill, unlike this George Floyd Act, which repurposes existing grant monies, I let them know that this bill will give money to community groups, not give bunches of dollars to those who will continue the same patterns. For too long, the disciplinary and misconduct records of officers who pose a knowing threat to public safety have been shielded from the public in a manner that has resulted in great harm to the communities they are entrusted to. Our bill shines a light. The Senate bill and the motion to recommit does nothing but closes the door and says nothing about Black Lives Matter. In fact, it is a system that encourages the collection of records. We can give him credit for working in a hostile chamber, but members of the CBC have prioritized and made sure that the issues of today are important. Let me be very clear. There's some of the notable distinctions between the two proposals. The House Justice and Policing Act vastly more deals with more systemic approach to accountability by developing national policing standards and requiring police departments to gain accreditation. It is a friend of police. It gives and deals with professionalization. It has a national registry. It is not private, it is public. It is systemic racism, and so we must be transparent. This fails the moment. The Justice and Policing Act takes a multi-pronged approach to eliminating the use of chokeholds. In this bill, George Floyd would not have lived. In the Justice and Policing Act, we could have saved his life and Eric Garner. How does the House bill ban no-knock warrants? We do it. And the Senate bill, all it does is study. We have no time for studying. It must be accountable time now. Now is the time. Can you believe that the Justice Bill, Senator Scott's bill, this bill, does not have anything in it about use of force, nothing about banning on racial profiling, nothing to fix the federal criminal prosecution standards, nothing to roll back on qualified immunity, and nothing on limitations on military hardware and disbursements. My brothers and sisters, I ask you, where is the party of Lincoln? Where's the party of the Constitution that says we create a more perfect union to create justice? This bill hears the cry of those who have never been heard. It gives us a pathway for success, and I am glad to stand with the Congressional Black Caucus and the Justice Department to say that this bill has to pass. The Justice and Policing Act named after George Floyd. I yield back.
All right, then. That was Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee speaking there on the floor. Folks, I came across this video. Y'all know I don't waste no time watching Fox News. But I came across this video. Shannon Watts, of course, who is a huge advocate for gun rights. I mean, huge advocate for gun control. My Lord. Okay, Mom's Demand. Y'all, I'm sorry, y'all. She posted this video. And when I say I absolutely cracked up laughing, you know, we always talk about what happened when the planters rode with those long rifles in Sacramento in the state capitol. Them white folks moved real quick to ban those guns in the state capitol. This was an interview that she did with Ed Henry, Kelly Loeffler, of course, United States Senator from Georgia. Y'all, this is just hilarious. Watch.
Not every day you see people carrying long guns in big cities in America. What is happening on the streets of Atlanta this morning?
Well, Ed, this is totally unacceptable. We cannot allow mob rule. We're a nation of the rule of law, and this is exactly what will happen if we defund the police. And that's exactly what the Democrats want to do. They have a move to defund, to dismantle law enforcement. I have stood strong with law enforcement from day one. I've recently introduced legislation that penalizes states and municipalities that move to defund without a budgetary reason by withholding federal highway safety transportation funds. So I stand strong with law enforcement. We need to bring the Justice Act to the floor. We need to have that debate. Our country expects us to do that.
I'll get to that, Bill, in a moment. But in the meantime, when you've got people with 12-gauge shotguns saying, we're keeping the police out, what in the world do you do about that? It has to make people wonder at a time when we keep hearing about sick calls in the Atlanta Police Department, some police officers not wanting to come to work because they don't think local officials have their backs.
Well, this is exactly what I've been warning about with the defund the police movement. It hurts all communities. It hurts everyone in our country when we don't have law and order, when we have mob rule. This is the vision that the Democrats have for our country. It's a great example of why we need to move this bill to the floor, why we need to stand strong with strengthening law enforcement, to rooting out bad apples. Everyone wants that. We all agree. And this can't be politicized. We've got to protect our citizens.
Well, on your last point there, we thought there was agreement potentially on police reform after these tragic deaths in Atlanta, Minneapolis, other places. Obviously, Democrats have been saying we need to pass this police reform bill. Now yourself, Tim Scott, and other Republicans have put their plan out.
I don't recall Kelly Loeffler, Reese, saying yet when white folks in Michigan and Wisconsin and Georgia and Texas were parading around with their guns at the state capitol, when they were inside of the Michigan State Capitol, blocking folks from getting to the governor's office.
And in the police officers' faces, shouting them down. They were armed. None of them got shot. None of them even got roughed up. And so Republicans are exposing themselves for the hypocrites that they are. Yeah, those black folks with them big-ass guns look very scary to these white Republicans. They look very scary to these white nationalists, that their mob rule is being threatened because they do not want to see black people rise up and exercise their constitutional rights to bear arms. And so, yeah, they can have these folks that are just simply standing there. They're not committing any crimes. They're exercising their constitutional rights, which the Republicans are supposedly for. That looks scary to them. Well, that looks a lot more reassuring to me than all those white folks on the armed in these capitals talking about don't wear a mask and we need to end the quarantine.
And here we go, Erica. This is the video in Michigan. Look, we got fatigues. My man that got his gun and I didn't hear Kelly and Fox News saying mob rule.
No, because those are the same listeners of Fox News. And it's so interesting to hear Kelly Loeffler talk about law and order. She is the richest person in Congress. And this is the same person whose investigation around insider trading was politely folded up by the Department of Justice. So where was the law and order around her insider trading when she got that Senate coronavirus briefing and then magically sold a lot of stock? So what we're hearing is more of the same of Republicans talking in sound bites, talking about really when black people stand in their power, how that then threatens white rule. And I'm glad. I cannot wait to continue to see more black people stand in their power, more black folks make sure that they are going to get weapons training if they've not gotten weapons training. Stand in your political power, because as you saw in the video that you just showed, white people continue to do that. They spit, they share their droplets, and you see law enforcement does not engage them in the same way that they do with black folks. So really, Kelly Loeffler, and really glad that seat that she was appointed to is definitely one that's a hotly contested seat in Georgia, somebody who is deserving, who is not just someone who happens to be married to the president of the New York Stock Exchange, just has that kind of like, wealth ability to be able to assume the seat, but someone who actually is for the people, that would carry the message for the people to the halls of the Senate.
Greg, oh my God, look at those black people with those big guns. Well, look at these white people in Michigan with the big guns. What about iPad? Look at that, Greg. I mean, goodness. I'm sorry. Looked like the white folks in Michigan had ordered from the same big gun place as the black folks, but no. When the Negroes go get big guns, oh, we got to pass some laws.
Well, you know, brother, the anchor there,
Ed Henry,
had the fear in his voice that, remember when Robert Williams told the story about how in North Carolina, when the white boys showed up with their guns, and then Robert and Mabel Williams and all them had their guns, that they made them so nervous that the white police dropped their guns out of fear. That story, by the way, is in this book right here, Negroes with Guns. This is the book, 1962. Robert Williams says, "Why do I speak to you from exile?" Because he was in Cuba, he and Mabel Williams. Because a Negro community in the South took up guns in self-defense against racist violence and used them. I am held responsible for this action, that for the first time in history, American Negroes have armed themselves as a group to defend their homes, their wives, their children in a situation where law and order had broken down and the authorities could not or would not force and protect American citizens. This is what Robert Williams said finally. I accept this responsibility and I am proud of it. Hey, Fox News, come on, baby. If we must die, let us nobly die. But what did Robert Williams and them find out? When we pulled our guns out, them white boys got so scared they dropped their guns. And we like Erica said, we're going to have to deal with Kelly Loeffler in a few months. You got a brother coming on in a minute that's going to whip her like she stole something. So,
well, that's what we're... Now, here's the deal. Again, I told y'all, I don't spend Fox News scared to call me. They ain't going to call me. Okay, I ain't the right kind of black. But I saw this here, and I want y'all to listen. I want y'all to listen to what the white woman says. And then I want y'all to look at the picture while she's saying it. Check this out.
Marie, you know, the founder of BET is going to be on with me in the next hour on Outnumbered Overtime. And one of the points he makes is that, you know, in a lot of ways, black people are being left out of this conversation. That as you sit there and there's the rioters and there's the debate about it and there's the violence, and you're not necessarily hearing from the people who it impacts what their thoughts are. And it's not coming through amid all of the violence and, you know, the pictures on television and even the conversations that are happening on TV. What are your thoughts?
Oh, okay. Okay, I want y'all, hold up. Go back. Go back. Go to my iPad. 1, 2, 3, 4 white women. 1 black guy. Okay, I you know what? She got to play it again, y'all. Listen what she says.
The founder of BET is going to be on with me in the next hour.
Okay, you said he's going to FaceTime me.
And one of the points he makes is that, you know, in a lot of ways, black people are being left out of this conversation. That as you sit there and there's the rioters and there's the debate about it, there's the violence, and you're not necessarily hearing from the people who it impacts what their thoughts are. And it's not coming through amid all of the violence and, you know, the pictures on television and even the conversations that are happening on TV. What are your thoughts?
Right there. Go back. 1, 2, 3, 4 white women. But y'all about to hear who gets to answer that question first. Watch this.
In many communities, that conversation is happening, and it's including a diverse cross, section of Americans and of.
So, I'm sorry, the black guy didn't get the question first. The black guy didn't get. Here's what gets me with this one, Greg. Fox News, y'all part of the problem. Y'all ain't having black people on talking about it because y'all are focused on the protesters and the rioters and the looters because you're not having real dialogue. Not on Sean Hannity, not on Laura Ingraham, not on Shannon Bream, not on Tucker Carlson, not on Martha McCallum, not on Brett Baer, none of these shows. But the fact that she literally asked that question with one black dude on the panel, and he didn't even get the black question.
Well, Roland, you know, it's funny. There are a lot of people who watch Roland Martin Unfiltered who are not black. But like August Wilson said, I don't write my plays for a black audience or a white audience. I write my plays out of the black experience. And then it resonates with people where they are. You are bringing the news and information out of our experience, and it resonates with people where they are. What they don't understand at Fox, and for that matter in commercial news, entertainment, media generally, is that by not including us in the conversation really, they are deluding themselves. Remember how Invisible Man opens Ralph Ellison's novel, where the white dude gets beat up by the protagonist in the novel, but the guy still can't see him because he's denied his humanity for so long, he thinks nobody beat him up. When this thing is crumbling all around you, and you continue to engage in this kind of foolishness like what you just saw, when it falls apart in your face, there will be nobody in this country who will be more shocked than those who were deluded into thinking they were dealing with reality by watching Fox instead of Roland Martin Unfiltered. All they doing is hurting themselves in the long run, brother.
Like, oh my God, I can't believe this, Reese. I mean, black people aren't being heard. Like, they're not being heard. What do you think, Becky?
And y'all don't want to hear from us, which is why you're watching Fox News, which is why you have a panel full of white women to, what is it, black-splain or is it white-splain? When white people are explaining how black people feel to other white people. Whatever it is, it's completely ridiculous. And Brother Man was giving, the eyebrow raise, but that's where you got to jump in a little bit. Come on, man. You got to be like, speaking of black people, what did Kamala Harris say on the debate stage? As the only black person on the stage, I would like to have a comment. That's where he needed to jump in. And
No, Reese, I got you there. Because guess what? He tried.
Okay.
Go to the iPad, please.
Nobody gets held responsible, so that's pretty convenient.
Okay.
That sounds like a great way to do it.
Yes, of course it's an organization. Of course it has a hierarchy. When corporations say they support the organization, they're not giving the money to random people on the street. They're giving the money to these organizations that do have particular policy positions. In this case, I actually just want to applaud this individual for being honest about his aims. He made a comparison that Marie Harf also made during this show, that sometimes you need to do violent revolution to overthrow things you don't like. Comparing George Washington to Saddam Hussein, and that it's therefore okay to tear down both of their statues. I did not compare George Washington to Saddam Hussein, Molly.
Hang on, let her finish.
That's ridiculous.
Well,
I didn't make that comparison.
The claim
is
I'm not
that
let her say it. Hang on, let her finish, Marie. Go ahead, Molly.
The claim is that it's okay to tear down statues, which this week have included George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and other people like that, and abolitionists, because it's just like what we did when we did a regime change war in Iraq, where we helped people tear down statues of Saddam Hussein. And I'm just making the point that that's what this individual is saying as well. He's saying that this is a corrupt and systematically evil and racist country, and that there needs to be a destruction of our constitutional system of government to accomplish his political aims. That's actually what Black Lives Matter has been saying the whole time, and it's why the group is not universally loved outside of corporations and mainstream media because of these things that they say. And it's not just political. The group also says that they call for the destruction of the norm, that it is best for children to be raised by their mother and father in a married, family. That is actually one of the most important things that I think people should be thinking about, because being raised in a two-parent home by your parents is actually the best thing that can be done to keep you from having bad educational outcomes. If you're raised by your married parents, you graduate high school, you have an increased likelihood of going to college, you're less likely to be addicted to drugs, you're less likely to be incarcerated. There are a lot of good and healthy outcomes associated with being raised by married parents. And that's the one thing that nobody seems to be talking about in this discussion, even though it would be the most important thing if we actually cared about the lives of black people and other people in this country.
The problem is, although
Molly, I compared Confederate generals to Saddam Hussein, and for you to say that I compared George Washington to Saddam Hussein is disgraceful, Molly. I'm sorry. That is completely unacceptable and inappropriate.
And it's not what I did.
What Melissa was saying earlier is
hang on.
Newsom was that he really
devolve into a shouting fest here. Let's leave it there.
He could have. Brother man could have done more than that. I don't care what you say, Roland. He could have said, as the only black person. And you know the white lady was going to shut him down anyway. But at least, come on, brother man. You're going to be on Fox, have some dignity. But I'm not going to blame his lack of dignity and his lack of willingness to stand up completely on him, because obviously Fox News is a white nationalist channel. And, you know.
But he works there. That's that dude, Lawrence, whatever his name is.
Oh, I don't know him. I've never seen him.
He's out of Texas. He don't be saying nothing. But but again, the thing is, black people, they can't speak, and the black dude can't speak.
Well, they can speak, brother. I mean, like you said, in that previous thing, in fact, I reached for it while we were over here. Here's another one. This is Nicholas Johnson's book. You might have to put this in Roland's book club, Negroes and the Gun. If y'all can see that, the black tradition of arms.
Yes, sir.
Black people speak. It's just that white people don't listen to their peril. That's why they're looking around now like, well, where did this come from? What do you mean? We've been saying this all along. If you don't listen to us, you'll suffer the consequences. We're not going to be the one that suffers the consequences. So if the brother wants to get his check, be quiet, kind of jump in there. And like you said, the optic of it says everything. There are no white men there. You are surrounded by white women. If you can't, to Reese's point, if you can't say anything then, that's all right, brother. Because this conversation we're having every night on Roland Martin Unfiltered, this is where the conversation is. So when the thing blows up, I guess he'll probably find his voice then at that point. That's probably when he'll find it. And at that point, it'll be too late.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. We'll talk with Reverend Raphael Warnock, who is running for the United States Senate in Georgia. Plus, we'll talk with a brother who used to work for the PGA about the racism he dealt with in golf. That's next. Roland Martin Unfiltered.
This is the story of a coward and a commander. The coward Trump dodged the draft. Jim Mattis led American troops for 40 years. While a frightened Trump hides from protesters in a deep bunker firing off tweets, Jim Mattis does what he's always done, leads. While Donald Trump angrily attacks, General Mattis's words deserve to be heard by every American. Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us. We know that we are better than the abuse of executive authority. We must reject and hold accountable those in office who would make a mockery of our Constitution. Militarizing our response, as we witnessed in Washington, D.C., sets up a conflict, a false conflict, between the military and civilian society. It erodes the moral ground that ensures a trusted bond between men and women in uniform and the society they are sworn to protect.
Who do you trust, the coward or the commander? The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. I gotta say, Erica, Lincoln Project don't play around with those ads against Trump.
Nah, they've been dropping them like mixtapes, and I'm here for it. I think that it's important that those people do talk to the folks that did help in part bring Trump into power. And it's really going to take a collective in order to move him out of power. It's not just on the strength of the Democrats, but people who really not just are tired of what we're seeing around the racial piece, but what we're also seeing in terms of how the United States is continuing to fall in the eyes of other countries. We've just seen recently where Europe has said that when they start to reopen in the month of July, that they are seriously considering not allowing folks from the United States to travel to Europe as well. So I think that it's going to be in the best interest of everyone to really get behind and make sure that Trump gets out of office in November.
Those ads matter because here's the piece, Reese. They're dropping them online. They're also going to be running them in various key battleground states. They've also announced they're going to be backing Steve Bullock, the governor of Montana, who's running for the United States Senate. They're going to be targeting Republicans there as well with those type of ads.
Yeah, and I've seen Donald Trump ads on TV where I am. And so it's time that somebody is going up against Donald Trump, and the Democrats, I guess, are holding their fire, or they're using their resources other places. So the Lincoln Project is stepping up. They're still the Never Trump Republicans, so I'm happy and encouraged to hear that they are actually backing Democratic senators as well as just being against Trump, because that's where I want to make sure that they keep the same energy and towards a progress when we move into the next chapter, when the Democrats do take power, that they don't revert back to their ways of being team.
Well, here's the deal, Reese. Bottom line is this here. Your friend today might be your enemy tomorrow.
That's true.
I can worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
If they on your side today, fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's the deal. Here's what I don't understand, Greg.
You're right. Today, it's useful for propaganda. But as Reese said, let's not make any mistake about it. Steve Schmidt, who is one of the founders with Rick Wilson and Kellyanne Conway's husband, George, one of the animating forces behind the Lincoln Project. Steve Schmidt, who was John McCain's campaign manager. Steve Schmidt, who went along with putting Sarah Palin in as the vice presidential nominee. Steve Schmidt, through Sarah Palin, is the grandfather of Donald Trump. You see, these Republicans, Trump is an embarrassment for them. But just like this, if you believe in this kind of thing, this traitor who's got a book out now, is a book I won't buy. You know damn well that it must be a hell of a book if I ain't gonna buy it. And I damn sure not gonna buy this boy's book. Somebody will give it to me eventually. But they are just the enemy of our enemy is our friend in this moment. But after this moment is over, these are our enemies. These are the people who want to get rid of Social Security. These are the people who want to throw people off of unemployment. These are the people. Steve Schmidt is not a hero. In fact, he's one of the reasons we have Donald Trump. The possibility of an idiot becoming president, you see a direct line from Sarah Palin to Trump. So, yes, in this moment, let us embrace them fighting each other and use it to the advantage. But do not forget that is step one for them. They're trying to redeem the GOP. Right. And the GOP is no less than, after that, than now, the party of white nationalism.
I'm good. Like the late Dr. Conrad Worrell said, take his ass out. Yeah. That's the goal. Take his ass out. Folks, Democrats just need to pick up 4 seats in order to take control of the United States Senate. They're leading big in Colorado, Arizona, leading in Maine as well. Could they pick up one of the 2 Senate seats in Georgia? Reverend Raphael Warnock. He actually says, yeah, and I'm going to do it. He's running for the United States Senate. He joins us right now. Doc, glad to have you here. First and foremost, it's been a busy week. The Rashad Brooks funeral took place at your church. We see what's happening in Kentucky with Charles Booker. He has pulled ahead of Amy McGrath. She's raised $41 million. My man only raised about $3 million. But it was the protests. It was what's happening right now on the streets that also begin to fuel his campaign. We're seeing the exact same thing happen in other places as well. Are you seeing the same type of energy behind your candidacy with what has taken place in the last 4 weeks since the death of the murder of George Floyd?
Good to be here with you, Roland. There's no question that we are in an inflection moment in the United States of America. As we deal with these issues that many of us have been addressing for years around police brutality and mass incarceration, it is as if the country is waking up. And I'm encouraged by this massive coalition of conscience pouring out into our streets. It's multiracial, and folks are trying to push our country toward the American dream.
Obviously, you have critical issues that are there, but the bottom line is this here. One that I keep saying, this happened this week. They confirmed the 200th federal judge of Donald Trump. Republicans want to control. There are only 800 plus federal judges in the country. That means that Donald Trump right now has confirmed 25% of all federal judges in America. If he gets 4 more years, or Republicans are in control of the Senate, they could very well, at the end of the next 4 years, confirm half of all federal judges in America.
We should be very concerned about that. And it's one of the reasons I'm running for the United States Senate. We don't pay nearly enough attention to the judiciary, but these judges that Mitch McConnell is pushing through are incompetent. They are ideologues. A lot of them have never tried a case or spent much time in a courtroom, and they're very young. So as I think about my young children, as I think about the future of civil rights, human rights, reproductive rights for women, we've got to get control of the Senate. Getting rid of Mitch McConnell is every bit as important, perhaps, as getting rid of Donald Trump.
So, in terms of there in Georgia, what are the top 3 issues that you are making clear to voters? How are you also connecting with non-black voters across that largely rural state?
Oh, so let me be really clear that Georgia is a battleground state, and we will win this election. I'm going to continue to lift up the issues that I've talked about my entire career. I've been focused on health care as a pastor. I think that health care is a human right. I've been arrested in the governor's office in an act of civil disobedience, saying that Georgia ought to expand Medicaid. And so I'd like to go to the United States Senate to correct and strengthen the places where the Affordable Care Act needs to be strengthened. I've been a champion for voting rights. We need to renew the Voting Rights Act. I believe in the dignity of work and the dignity of workers. I'm a kid who grew up in public housing down in South Georgia, and I had a dream as a kid who became the first college graduate in my family. I had grit, determination, but somebody gave me a Pell Grant. Somebody gave me a low-interest student loan, and I intend to bring that kind of passion and commitment to the race for the United States Senate. We're building a broad coalition. I've outraced everybody in this race, and you're going to see at the end of this quarter that we're a strong campaign, a movement in a real sense that I think is strengthening week after week. And come November, we intend to have the victory.
Questions from my panel. I'm going to start off with the Georgia native, Erica.
Hello there, Reverend Warnock, and I'm from Albany, Georgia, so I want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I heard you over the weekend when you lifted Albany, Georgia, in terms of the impact that COVID has had. And so my question to you is specifically around Southwest Georgia. How do you intend, or how have you been engaging Southwest Georgia? You know that particularly that Dougherty County, Tifton area, we see, heavy numbers of Black people. I know in Albany it's about 66% voting block of Black women. But usually we don't see issues from that area that really come up to the Capitol and get raised in a substantial way. So what are the ways in which you're communicating with the people that are in Southwest Georgia to ensure that they're understanding what your campaign is about and importance of them being involved in it to make sure that you're in that seat for 2020?
Thank you so much for your question. And, historically, there's been this divide that Republicans particularly have tried to emphasize between Atlanta and the rest of the state. Well, my church is in Atlanta, but I grew up in Savannah, Southeast Georgia. I'm deeply concerned about the concerns in Southwest Georgia. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we haven't been able to get out in the way that we would like to, but we've been organizing events. I was on the phone just the other day with folks in Albany. We're in the midst of organizing some events virtually. Certainly, I plan to be there on the ground. I'm very concerned that Albany, Georgia, a city with 70,000 people, is a hotspot for coronavirus. I'm somebody who's always fought for health care. When I got arrested in the governor's office fighting for Medicaid expansion in Georgia, I was thinking about small cities and towns like Albany, Georgia. Rural hospitals and rural health care in this state has literally been demolished while people are playing politics. And so I intend to bring those concerns to this conversation.
Reese.
Hi, Reverend Warnock. What's interesting about your special election is that you're going up against so many different candidates, including Kelly Loeffler, who has the power of incumbency behind her. Does that change your strategy at all? Whereas, you know, the other Senate seat that's up on November, there's one Democrat and one Republican facing off. You have a much bigger challenge. How are you approaching that?
Well, let me first of all point out that Georgia is the only state in the country with 2 Senate races going on this cycle. Mm-hmm. So actually, I think what we have is a kind of political synergy that can help deliver victories in both races. We've got 2 Senate races. Lucy McBath has won the 6th, Newt Gingrich's old district. Mm-hmm. We could very well flip the 7th and turn the state house back into Democratic hands. So you're correct. I'm running against an incumbent, but she's not an incumbent who's won an election. She's never won an election. She was appointed by Governor Kemp, who has demonstrated that he doesn't make good decisions. And I intend to remind people that she was appointed by him. She's being challenged by Republican Congressman Doug Collins. Mm-hmm. Because there's no primary, they will be fighting it out all the way to November 3rd. And what we've got to do is strengthen our base, build out our coalition, and deliver the victory come November. If we don't win it outright in November, and I think we can win it in November, I will be one of the 2 persons in the runoff. And the runoff will be January 5th. We'll be the only Senate race in the country.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you.
Greg Carr.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Reverend Warnock. Brother, I see, man, you got Sierra Lincoln, C.L. Franklin, Gaylord, Will Moore, Albert Rabbitoe. You got all the heavyweights behind you on their bookshelf, brother. But let me ask you, man, in line with what Reese has just asked, how does early voting play into your strategy, particularly given the network you must have statewide in terms of, you know, churches and civic leaders and folks you've worked with over the years? And do you have a number in your head in terms of trying to get that 50% without having to go to the runoff? I mean, how important is that early voting and maybe building on the momentum that Stacey Abrams laid a couple of years ago?
Thank you. Early voting is critically important, and we intend to build on the coalition that Stacey Abrams built. Let me say that I've been working alongside her in this work since 2014. When she started the New Georgia Project in 2014, I was first a spokesperson, and then I became the chair of the board. We've registered some 400,000 new voters just with the New Georgia Project since 2014. Stacey and the coalition that she built represented a historic coalition in our state. She won some 1.9 million votes. Nobody except Governor Kemp, who engaged in shameless acts of voter suppression, had more votes than Stacey in the history of the state. She only lost by 55,000 votes, less than a point and a half. We've registered some 700,000 new voters since that last election, half of whom are people of color and people under age 30. So we have the coalition. We intend to strengthen it and build it. We will be emphasizing vote by mail. I've hired a mail company that will be pursuing this aggressively. The other side knows that the momentum is with us. The wind is behind our back, which is why as late as today, they were trying to get rid of vote by mail. It will not stand. We saw a record turnout. 1 million Democrats turned out to vote in the primary. They withstood the heat and the rain because they understood that we're fighting two pandemics, COVID-19 and COVID-16-19, the virus of
Yes,
racism in America that has mutated from slavery to Jim Crow segregation to the new Jim Crow mass incarceration in the age of colorblindness. I continue to fight the good fight.
All right, Pastor Raphael.
I hope you all can hear me. I've been hearing myself twice, Roland.
No, we're good.
This whole interview.
That's nothing. That's easy. That's easy. That's
right. I preach every Sunday morning.
Right. I've done that on television. You just block that out. You just keep going. That ain't no thing. That ain't no thing. So you just keep
Roland,
that don't even matter.
You must have my sound crew. You must have my audio crew.
No, I don't have your audio crew. You know, you might have Teddy Riley's audio crew. I'll hook you up right, because now look, I've been doing the home studio for years. This ain't nothing new for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to raise an offering for the Roland Martin building fund.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. No. You can go right ahead and raise an offering, because that's why we building this show, Black Platform, reaching our people, and so that's why we're doing it, because the ability for us to be able to inform our people. We added 48,000 new subscribers to YouTube last month. We're gonna do 50,000 this month, and so we're trying to be self-funded. So just like you trying to get campaign contributions, we're trying to let our people know that we've got to build our own institutions, so we're not begging MSNBC and CNN to talk about our issues, and we can talk about them whatever we want to.
And you're doing it. Let the pastor say, please go to warnock4georgia.com. You can go there and contribute to my campaign.
All right, then. Reverend Warnock, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, speaking of that, if you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, all you got to do is simply go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Of course, we want to get 20,000 of our followers contributing at least $50 a year, joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Y'all, it is literally 50, almost 6,000 of y'all watching on YouTube right now. Y'all can give right there on YouTube. For all the people who contribute to the show, I told you I do personal shout outs to the folks who give $50 or more. But Cash App is Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You can send a money order to New Vision Media. That's the parent company, NU Vision Media, Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. No, the show is not over. So everybody breathe. Don't go anywhere, because you don't want to miss the next conversation. And so now go pull the graphic back up, please. Again, I don't want y'all to miss that. Right now we got about 8,400 people. We want to get another 1,600 by the end of June to hit 9,000, so we can keep building, because we've got some phenomenal things. And here's a perfect example, y'all. Here's a perfect example. And I'm going to pull it up right now. I told you about, leave that up until I pull it up. I told y'all about, in terms of why we are doing this, okay? So earlier in the show, you saw us covering the Breonna Taylor rally that took place. Well, guess what, folks? We didn't just cover that during the show. We actually live streamed that rally this morning right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. That's right, 185,000 views of that rally took place. And so that's why we have this platform, the Justice for Breonna Taylor rally that took place. Here's some video earlier. This is from the live stream. If you actually go to our YouTube channel, go to our Facebook page, and that's why we have created this particular platform, to be able to cover those type of things that you're not seeing covered by mainstream media every single day. Not only that, Also, I want to show you something. This took place. The announcement went out today. If y'all have been following us, and so if you've been looking at our channel for the past few weeks, you've noticed that we have been live streaming this AEO conference. And so we've been partnering with ABCD and Company on this AEO conference. And so here's some of that video right there. They have been, this is actually a conference that's targeting African Americans when it comes to home ownership. Well, we've actually been live streaming that. And so what ABCD and Company announced today is this particular partnership where we are working with them to actually stream and produce other virtual conferences. And so this is the graphic right here, ABCD and Company partnering with New Vision Media. And this is another thing that we're doing with this company, why we are building this out, because we want to be able to, again, to cover our own, to be able to speak truth. And so a lot of people out there right now are going to virtual conferences. We have the infrastructure to actually produce these. And so if you and your company is interested in us doing this, taking advantage of our platform, give us a call. We can actually make that happen. But that's why we're doing this, folks. It's also employing our own ABCD and Companies, Black-owned companies. So are we. And that's why we're doing this. And so this is all about creating a platform that we control. And so whether it's conferences, whether it's these rallies that other people don't cover, we want to be sure to have a platform in doing so. And that's why we're doing that. So that's why it is important. And so not only that, you got folks like Greg and Reese and Erica. Again, we have expertise in the community. We have expertise who can speak to the issues that aren't necessarily being covered by other folks, and we want to be able to cover it in our own way. Greg, we've always had that. That's always been our history. And I think what this really is right now, Greg, this is a moment where I need Black people in 2020 to be thinking and have the same conviction that Black people did when the Chicago Defender launched, when Ida B. Wells Barnett was writing about lynching, when the North Star launched, what the Pittsburgh Courier did, what A.I. Scott and the Atlanta Daily World did, what John H. Johnson and Ebony and Jet did. Those were institutions that Black people funded with their subscriptions. And so when we ask folks to talk about join our Bring the Funk fan club, that's the same as a subscription. And so and I can tell y'all, the subscription to get the Wall Street Journal cost me almost $400 a year. I'm saying if we can get our folks just contribute $50 each, if 12,000 more of our followers, and right now there are 5,500 watching on YouTube right now. If we get 12,000 more people between now and the end of the year, it completely funds our show.
Absolutely. I mean, we heard Reverend Warnock. I mean, Roland, you've said it. This man is in the pulpit at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Not only was that Dr. King's church, not only was that Dr. King's father's church, it sat at the center of Black institutions, including that newspaper you named, the Atlanta Daily World, which really galvanized during the Jim Crow era and segregation era Black political power. It was that institutional formation that put a Maynard Jackson in office. When you see the Black press prior to the end of segregation, the Black press was the backbone of the communication network in our community. When Dr. King wanted to get something out, he went to the radio station right there on Auburn Avenue and got it out. My point is this. As folks are watching what we're doing right now, understand that this pandemic has in some ways created a space that hasn't existed since the end of segregation. We are now on equal footing. You are watching this. You could click over and watch another commercial news entertainment venue. But people are now searching for the thing that troubles and resonates in their spirit. And the Black press has always been that thing. But now during the pandemic, all of the prestige, all the brick and mortar stuff, all the big money pouring in to keep things in front of your face, those things are melting away. And what is reemerging? That backbone of the Black communications network. If everybody do a little, nobody has to do a lot. Put a little bit on it. When you see Bob Johnson talking about reparations, you know why that is? Because right now, institutions are dissolving and resources are being channeled other places. BET never got it done. And guess what? That day is over. It's time to put 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 on Roland Martin Unfiltered and watch as more and more people build this momentum. And we will have the force that we had in the days that we killed Jim Crow. We'll have that same force for the 21st century. And you can be a part of it now.
And if we are independently funded, we don't have to ask anybody's permission in terms of what we can cover and who we can put on, because we control it. Right now, Democrats are voting in the House on the George Floyd Act. Go to my iPad, please. You'll see the actual vote tally right there. Right now, this is a motion to this is one of the changes. So this is not the final vote. The final vote is actually next, and so we're actually monitoring that as it speaks. And so we're going to go to our next story. Again, folks, you can give right now on the show, Cash App. You can give via PayPal, Venmo. People on YouTube, I'm actually looking. I can see right now who's actually giving on the site. So again, it's 5,578 of y'all watching on YouTube right now, and a lot of y'all watching for free. These cameras and these monitors ain't free. All right, y'all. We talk about what's happening now around this country since the death of George Floyd, and so many people are calling out instances of racism. Well, my next guest, Wendell Haskins, is one of those folks. He worked for the PGA of America, and let me tell you something, y'all. He dropped an open letter, a column laying out all the kind of crap that he had to deal with and what he wants them to do to change. He joins us right now. Wendell, how you doing, my brother?
Great. How you doing, Roland?
Man,
Thanks for having me on.
You laid this thing out in your letter. You talked about how you were marginalized, ignored, how you actually did things when you, of course, were leading diversity efforts there from 2014 to 2017. You're now Chief Marketing Officer for the Professional Collegiate League. Man, just give people a sense of what the crap that you had to deal with and when you were trying to help diversify the game of golf, a game that you and I both love.
And we both love it, Ro. We played together. We spent a lot of time on the golf course. And as you know, golf changed the trajectory of my life pretty much. When I got into the game, I really set out to bring other people into the game, share my love for the game, as you know we both have, and introduce folks to the game. And I started my own original Tee Golf Classic golf tournament in the year 2000, which you've been to and have attended several years in a row. And I was picked to come work for the PGA of America. And I went there to bring all of my relationships and my experiences to professional golf, to the PGA of America, to help the PGA members and to help the organization become a more diverse organization. So you saw some of the things that I laid out in the letter that just kind of started from the very time I started at PGA of America. But one of the things that I wanted to do when I got there was to get Charlie Sifford the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which I was successful in. But you can also see in the letter some of the things that I'd experienced.
Yeah, no, and the letter you laid out, here you are, and we were actually there. We attended the reception that was put on honor there. But you one of the things that you laid out, you had reached out to one of your contacts where you actually got vouchers to be able to fly in some of the folks to attend, and your direct report said no. Then you said how folks were in town and wouldn't even attend that reception to honor Charlie Sifford.
That's true. That's true. Unfortunately, those were some of the things that I had to deal with, and I really didn't understand why they wouldn't be supported when I'd gotten, so much great support from the Black community, and people were genuinely excited for Charlie Sifford to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yeah, but they also even tried to get you to stop doing your own golf tournament.
Yes, I was advised to stop doing my original Tee event in 2014. And that was the year I was actually honoring Renee Powell, who happened to be a PGA member nonetheless. So it was really disappointing to experience some of those things, but I had to endure them. And I kept, just taking it day by day. And, obviously very early on, I felt that there was a problem. That's why I documented so many things, because that became necessary.
You reached out to an African-American guy who put up money for this minority collegiate golf tournament, and they pretty much ignored the guy, and he pulled his funding, realizing that wasn't getting the kind of support. And that wasn't even your job to go out and raise money. But tell our audience how you worked the relationship to get Steph Curry as a golf ambassador, and then how they completely cut you out of it as if you never even existed when you were the one who set it all up.
Yeah, well, I'm really heavily involved in the golf community, Roland, just as you are. You and I see each other on the golf circuit from time to time. And, we attend some really outstanding events where the black golf community is really robust. And that was something that I really wanted to share with the world. I knew Steph Curry was an avid golfer. I knew he was a good golfer at that. So it wasn't just that he played golf, but Steph is pretty much a scratch golfer and one of the most popular athletes in the world. And I thought, wow, this would be a guy who'd be a great role model and an example to be an ambassador for the PGA of America's Junior League Golf program. So, everyone in the office knew that I was going to pursue Steph Curry because that's all I talked about for a while. Wouldn't it be great if you could have Steph Curry be an ambassador for golf along with Ricky Fowler, Rory McIlroy, Lexi Thompson, and Michelle Wie, even though he's not a professional a tour player. And, I had a great relationship with the NBA. I always have. The NBA has been a sponsor of my original Tee Golf Classic since day one. And they were very helpful and instrumental in introducing me to Steph Curry to talk to him about it. So I flew out to the NBA Finals in Cleveland after a game. A good friend of mine who was in player relations at the NBA introduced me to Steph. We had a brief conversation. And he said, let's talk. When the season is over, and I'd love to hear more about what you're talking about. And that's pretty much all I needed. So I just waited for his call. Several months later, his team gave me a call. It wasn't Steph himself, but he gave me a call. His team gave me a call and said, come on out to Oakland and let's just discuss what you're talking about. Now, I had to talk to his team and give him a little background of what it was about and so forth, which was great. I had no problem doing that. So when I took it to my direct report at the time and said, I finally got the meeting with Steph Curry, he paused a beat and said, let's talk about it in a few. I said, when is the meeting? And it was within 10 days. And I was just doing anything that I could to get on Steph's schedule. And then he came back to me and said, I have something on my calendar that day. Why don't you try to reschedule it? So I said, I wouldn't advise that we try to schedule a meeting with Steph Curry. He's very busy. He's one of the most popular athletes in the world, and I waited a long time to get this meeting. And, he said, I have something on my schedule, so try to reschedule it. So I really had no recourse. I mean, had I gone ahead with it, I really wouldn't have had the authority or the approval to negotiate anything with him. And so I had to call his people and say, look, my leadership really wants to be there, and let's try to reschedule this when my leadership can be present. I did that per his direction. And then shortly after, he went and called his agency, which was Octagon, and I guess rescheduled the meeting.
So he reschedules the meeting with Steph Curry. Don't invite you to the meeting, the very meeting you set up.
Yeah, by that time I was making my exit. So he set up the meeting for himself. He went and took the meeting with Steph Curry, and he had it and negotiated the partnership with Steph Curry to be the ambassador for Junior League Golf program. Yes, that's how it happened.
Erica, bringing Erica, Reese, and Greg, we're now seeing, and first of all, African Americans like Wendell in all kinds of different areas are now speaking up, calling folks out, and putting them on and forcing them to have to deal with this stuff. Well, you look at what's happening in ABC News, where former employees are speaking out about Barbara Fadida, who's been placed on administrative leave. We've seen where just yesterday, the West Virginia University defensive coordinator had to apologize to football players for his comments. The Iowa athletic department strength coach actually was forced out because of what athletes saying. What is happening, I keep saying, Erica, this is the reckoning. And I dare say that this is the moment, if you're black and you're working in these places, if you're still there, speak up now, because, hell, this is the best moment to put this stuff front and center.
Yeah,
it is, because there's literally almost nothing to lose, because there are companies and corporations who, because of the hour that we're in, the moment that we're in, and the movement that we're seeing, that there has to be some level of reconciliation with the rampant, literal Black labor and just really white taking of what has been laid out by Black labor. So I guess, like, one of the things that I'm really kind of struggling with, just kind of taking it in after I read it, but then after hearing you talk about it, Wendell, is what, for you to have constructed this piece, what all kind of went into you actually making the decision that now is really the time to really lay out to bear all of this work that you put in order to do something that was going to be of benefit for not just, Black children, but for children of color, just children largely. What all went into you being able to sit down and really pen this piece to really lay out and let people know largely what happened?
Well, thank you. I had all of the notes from that time, from my entire period at the PGA of America. I moved on. I worked for the PCL. I'm the chief marketing officer for a startup called the Professional Collegiate League. So that experience is 3 years behind me. But, when the George Floyd incident happened and all of the sports leagues and organizations were putting out their statements, on their position statements on the George Floyd incident, PGA of America was a little slow to it. And when they did, their CEO, Seth Waugh, and their president, Susie Whaley, put out statements pretty much saying, we need to have more kindness and faith and hope in the golf industry, and that, we need to have a better understanding of what Black people experience to make a better world, to make the golf a better place. So they just really seemed like empty platitudes to me. And they ended the article by saying suggestions on what you think should be done. So I just said, wow. But the kicker of that as well was that in the article that I read with that position statement, the picture that they used for that announcement was a picture with the CEO and the president with Steph Curry. So when I saw that, I said, wow, there's a lot behind that picture that people don't know.
Right.
So I decided this is a time to really speak up, to let people know what the culture of the PGA of America was like while I was there, and some of the things that I experienced. And hopefully this will help change the culture of the organization. They can use this as a teachable moment.
And Reese, that's the point here. Enough with these little empty-ass gestures. This is why they got to be called out versus these little statements these people are sending out, because there are real things that Black people have been dealing with that have to be addressed.
Absolutely. And I think these companies understand there's a corporate responsibility, there's a social responsibility aspect of it that is profitable. Look at what happened with NASCAR and them deciding to, go all in with Black Lives Matter and Bubba Wallace. They have seen a surge in support from the Black community. And so, Wendell, I totally applaud you for calling out this kind of hypocrisy from the PGA, because we're not interested in platitudes. You have to actually back it up. But the question I have for you is, do you think it's helpful in situations like what you've laid out with Steph Curry? And I'm not trying to say that he did anything wrong here, but do you think it's helpful to try to get Black celebrities or Black people who have social status to insist on working with the Black leaders within these organizations, and instead of just kind of going along with whoever reaches out to them? Do you think that there's a way of trying to encourage the people who have that power? Some people use it. Some people say, I want a Black photographer, I want a Black hairdresser, or whatever number of things. Do you think that's something that we should be encouraging a lot more?
Yes, I do. Everybody knows the incident with Beyonce when I think she met with either Adidas.
It was Reebok. It was Reebok.
Oh, okay, so Reebok. And she met with them, and they were going over the business plan and the branding of her apparel line. And she said, where are the people that are going to be working on this? And when they introduced her to the team and she saw no Black representation, she was immediately turned off and called them out on it to say, look, I need people of color, Black women and, Black folks working on my project. And that was a strong move, especially because she had the power to do it, so it is very important. In Steph's case, I don't think it was presented to Steph in a way that that my presence was necessarily missing. I think it was presented to him in not so clear of a way that I just wasn't on the project anymore. So, but it would have been great for him to be able to say something and advocate for someone that he knew initiated this. So whenever there's the opportunity to advocate for, Black people or people of color to be on projects that have the cultural competency and the knowledge of culture to be able to add value to your projects, by all means, you should speak up.
Last question, Greg Carr for Wendell Haskins.
Thank you, Roland. Brother Haskins, I can't thank you enough, brother. Reading that 8-page letter really, really, really connected a lot of things for me. And, of course, we know, what was it, 2003 or 4? Was it Hootie, whatever his name was? It was like, we'll play the Masters with no sponsor.
Darius,
so, I mean,
Hootie Johnson.
Tennis
Hootie Johnson.
The last bastion, more so than NASCAR. Golf is the last bastion, brother. I mean, they don't want no Black people in golf. I mean, so when in reading that letter, when you bring up a guy like Calvin Sinnett, I know Calvin Sinnett, his wife, Eleanor DuVernay Sinnett, was at Howard for years, more than Spingarn. Calvin Sinnett and Eleanor Sinnett knew Malcolm X. They spent time in West Africa. He's the historian, brother. So that's not a slight. That's a deliberate thing. So I think about this, and this is the question I really want to ask. When Hootie Johnson said, we're going to play the Masters, we don't care about money. We got money. And we know Augusta National sits on John C. Calhoun Road in Augusta, Georgia. These are white supremacists. When Tiger Woods won that first Masters in '97, and he named Charlie Sifford, and he named Teddy Rhodes, who played at Pearl High School in my hometown, Nashville, Tennessee, and Lee Elder, how much of this is about preventing another Tiger Woods? And what would it take to break the back of golf, which is the last bastion in professional sports? Because they're going to play, aren't they going to play? You put it in your letter. They're going to play the PGA National at a Trump property in 2022. What would it take to break the back of this last bastion in professional sports of white nationalism?
When you say break the back, what do you mean in terms of?
Meaning the Williams sisters, Coco Gauff, golf. That's one thing in tennis. But golf requires an investment of resources and to not only put us in that position, but once we've got those golfers, because as you know, Steph Curry has put in, Howard's going to have a revival of its golf program. But what happens when you show up at Augusta National? What does it take to bust those doors down? So you say, no, we must play. I mean, I'm good enough to play, of course. But what was it Sifford said? But let me play or something.
Just let me play. Just let me play was the name of Sifford's book. And certainly, certainly Tiger, who's arguably the greatest golfer of all time, should be advocating for some of those things. Unfortunately, we haven't heard enough from Tiger in regards to race and being a Black man in golf and really advocating for more representation of people of color in golf. It's just like when you have any great champion, that's the time that you can, have the most impact to be able to make a difference in the game. And he's done a tremendous.
Go ahead. We got you, Wendell. Go ahead. Wendell, we're still there.
Hello?
Yeah, we're still there. Go ahead.
I think sorry, my screen froze. I mean, he's done a tremendous amount for the game, and certainly he could do more. But we look to him to and hope that he will embrace his Blackness and to be able to use his influence to bring more people of color into the economy of the game. Golf is an $82 billion business, but disparity of wealth in the game and the distribution of wealth in the game is horrendous. So it's a huge industry. There are opportunities that certainly would warrant people of color, Black people in particular, in having jobs and being employed in the industry. And we've yet to see that with any kind of real conviction. But there definitely needs to be a stimulus of such into the golf industry.
All right, then, folks. Wendell Haskins, I certainly appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much for joining us and sharing your story with us. And you did do phone calls with leaders of the other golf associations. So last question, what did they say? They going to step up?
They claim they want to step up. They want this to be a transformational moment. Hopefully, I will be instrumental in assisting them to leading them to some of these solutions. I definitely would look forward to working with them in that regard, because I love the game. And like I said, Roland, and you can attest to this, we love the game of golf, and it has changed and certainly enhanced our lives and our experiences. And, those are definitely things that we want other Black folks to be able to enjoy and participate in.
All right. Wendell Haskins, I so appreciate it, bro. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. It's good talking to you.
Yes, indeed. Folks, let's go out of my iPad. This is the final vote being taken as we speak on the George Floyd Act on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. Go ahead, go to the audio, please.
Yes.
So as you see right now, 102 Democrats have voted for. You have 97 Republicans who have voted nay. Right now it's 103 to 97. And of course, it's 10 more minutes for them to vote. They will, so a lot of times they will leave it open a little bit longer. Go right ahead.
House Resolution 965, I inform the House that Ms. Axne will vote aye on H.R. 7120.
So, we're going to break it all down tomorrow, folks, what the final vote tally is, and then, of course, what happens next. Democrats blocked the Senate bill. We'll see if Senator Tim Scott wants to bring it back up and work with the Democrats on making revisions to it. We'll be covering all of that, folks. Don't forget, Roland Martin Unfiltered, to join our Bring the Funk fan club. A lot of you have already been joining right here on YouTube as well as via Cash App. And so tomorrow, I'll read the names of everybody who's giving $50 or more. I got some checks over here, so we'll announce all of those folks tomorrow. Again, this is about being independent and Black-owned. Greg, Reese, Erica, thanks a bunch for being on the panel. Thank you so very much. Look at y'all. Y'all just holding. Look at y'all. I see y'all. All right, then.
Black media support Roland Martin Unfiltered, everybody, today. Do it today.
And I don't know who had more books, whether it was Greg or Raphael Warnock. I don't know who had more books.
It's just my reserve library. You know, my books ain't even in the shot, man.
Greg said, this is my backup library. See?
Backup library, bro. That's my working library.
Look at it. He flexing. Right, showing off.
Fundamental, brother. You know that.
Look at it. He's showing off. Oh, nah.
I have to say, I made it on Room Raider, so I think I have the best room, technically, on the panel until you guys make it on Room Raider.
Yeah, so just so y'all know, there's a Twitter handle called Room Raider. And since all these people have been doing these shows from home, they've been rating the backdrops and the lighting and everything. And so Reese really been feeling herself since they gave her a 9. I think it was a 9 out of 10.
I got an 8, but I think I get a 9 today because I got the door.
They gave her an 8, and they said, they had the little orchids or whatever, her little flowers and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but y'all notice how she just took all the credit. She ain't gonna say what happened when that shot was looking a little raggedy and I had to make a phone call.
Oh yeah, you told me to get step my game up, so I appreciate you, Roland.
Yeah, I was like, look at here. Last 3 weeks that shot been looking a little rough. Let's have a conversation. So, all right, folks, I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow. We got to go.